Hi, buddy. I'm Matt.
And I'm Steve.
And this is Marvel Reread Club. All right. Well, Steve, welcome.
Well, I thank you for welcoming me to my own podcast.
Yes. Welcome to myself as well. Welcome to everyone. So let's see. What are we jumping in and doing here? We're doing the books. We're going to begin December 1968 here. So This is finally, we've reached the end. We've covered all the annuals. We're just need to get through 3 more episodes covering the main books of December 1968. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's all good. So I think we both got some family news. Matt, you had some unfortunate news about your son, didn't you?
Yes, I did. My son got in a bad bike accident. You get the call that every parent dreads, where basically I got a call from someone going like, I just found a kid in a bloody heap by the side of the road. Is he yours? And I was like, yeah. He had hit a bump going down a hill and the front wheel went flying off of his bike. Thank God he was wearing his helmet. He probably would have died if he hadn't, but instead he was just really scraped up. He had a fractured nose. He had a fractured finger. He had to miss his final baseball game and his final 2 soccer games. And that was a shame, but he is doing much better now. He's looking much better. He is out of pain. He just needs to wait for his 2 fractures to heal.
Well, at that age, they heal quickly and they heal well. So those bones will probably be stronger in the end than they would have been without this.
His finger is a little bit crooked now. And they asked, do you want to go ahead and rip it open and put pins in there and try to straighten it out? But it's just ½ centimeter crooked. And so that no one would ever notice unless you pointed it out to them. And we're like, nope. It's like, is this going to impede him in any way? And they're like, nope, it's not going to impede him in any way. It's just strictly aesthetic, whether or not you want to straighten the finger out. And we're like, nope. It's, obviously we left it up to Jack, but we decided not to do it.
Okay. All right. Well, I wish him a speedy recovery. And then I know it was his birthday recently, and then it's coming up on your birthday and your daughter's birthday. And so happy advanced birthday to both of you. I guess I'll probably speak to you again before that comes about, but I just figured I would go ahead and say it now.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Then meanwhile, we announced last time my daughter had secured an apartment in New York City, and we are going to be driving up tomorrow to go help her move in. So
very exciting.
Yes, they're going to do a very quick up on Tuesday and back on Thursday trip to New York City to help her move in. And we will get to see the place. And I'm very excited for that.
So we shouldn't say this on air. So let's go ahead and turn the microphones off. Okay. Should we turn the mics back on?
Yes. Let's virtually turn the mics back on.
All right. Let's turn the mics back on. 3, 2, 1. Welcome back, everybody. I wanted to find out exactly where Alexa was living, but for obvious reasons, we didn't want that to go out on the air from anyone who has strong feelings about whether or not Stan Lee wrote these books. And
yes. Oh, by the way, have you ever seen the Facebook group, The Marvel Method?
No, I haven't.
They often show up on my Facebook feed, and man, do they hate Stan Lee. Jeez, okay. It is. Well, and Roy Thomas almost as much, but they just absolutely treat them like just the worst mustache twirling villains that you could imagine.
No, I haven't seen this.
Oh, man. It's often interesting information. It's just that I have to take everything they say with the grain of salt that they will interpret absolutely everything in the worst possible light for Stan Lee and Roy Thomas and some other people, basically any of the writers. But I don't know. Okay. So we need to go ahead and get into talking about some actual comics here. So do you want me to start with Amazing Spider-Man, or do you want to start with Amazing Spider-Man?
Well, I guess I started our last episode with Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 5. So why don't you start this episode with Amazing Spider-Man number 67?
All right. Sounds good. So Amazing Spider-Man number 67. This is a wordless cover that I'd say is a pretty famous wordless cover here.
Yeah.
Certainly very striking. You see Spider-Man from behind in the foreground in an amusement park, and you see these 2 giant hands of Mysterio reaching up to try to snatch him. No words, just this menacing image, which is quite effective.
Yeah, I love it. I love this cover.
So where we last left off, Spider-Man had found Mysterio and then got knocked unconscious. And when he came back, he, as far as he could tell, was inside a miniature amusement park that had been on Mysterio's desk. And Mysterio was still giant and was going to destroy him. So,
well, he thought that Mysterio was normal sized and that he was tiny.
Well,
and
yes.
that normal sized Mysterio was going to destroy tiny Peter Parker.
Yes,
tiny Spider-Man.
I'm sorry if I was unclear about that. Yes, I meant giant in comparison to the miniature Spider-Man. So,
Yes.
The Amazing Spider-Man, to squash a spider. No wonder it's great. Look who did it. Stan Lee and Johnny Romita, writer and artist. Jim Madman Mooney, embellisher, lettered by Artie Simak. So is this the first regular series issue that Mooney has inked, or did he do the previous one?
No, he did like 2 issues ago, and I think maybe another one before that. And then I was like, okay, it's going to be Mooney from now on. And then suddenly Heck was back last issue. And I was like, what's Heck and DeMeo doing back? I thought we were going to have Mooney as finisher and anchor from this point on, but now Mooney is back. So let's hope that he's here to stay.
Yes, indeed. Okay, so that is the setup. So Spider-Man is trying to figure out if he is losing his mind or if this is special effects or what's going on.
Hint, it's Mysterio. It's probably special effects. But he takes him a while to catch on to that.
Yes. Anyway, he is trying to escape from this gigantic Mysterio, once again, gigantic in comparison to the presumably 6-inch tall Spider-Man. And eventually Spider-Man jumps into one of the buildings in the amusement park and then gets trapped in a hall of mirrors.
Mm-hmm.
And he's gonna just break his way out, but then Mysterio is like, guess what, I coated every one of those mirrors with poison. If you get scratched with them, you will die. So which seems like a really easy lie to tell.
Yeah.
It's like
you don't want to test it.
You could just do that at any point. Just, hey, you know what? I coated that thing in poison. So,
yes.
Meanwhile, we cut back to Aunt May and Mrs. Watson. The doctor is coming by to do a house call on Aunt May. Apparently they still have not yet repaired the front door on the house. I don't know how long this has been since Peter Parker knocked the door open and wrecked it, but they're not secure in their home at this point.
No.
So the doctor is basically saying the best thing for her is rest and love from her family, but that no good ne'er-do-well nephew of hers doesn't seem to be interested in helping her out. So there's a little aside to Jameson and Robertson at the Bugle offices. But then we get back to Spider-Man in his predicament. He ends up using a whole bunch of web fluid to create, I don't know, what would you call those? They're not over his hands. They're just over his forearms, these big guards that he then uses to smash through the glass and, theoretically not get cut by it. Anyway, Spider-Man then escapes into what ends up being a whirlpool. He's afraid he's going to drown, but then he makes it out. He then has to face some swinging axes that are coming at him, and he's able to get by those. There's then a big dragon that is attacking him, a water dragon right above the water there. And meanwhile, the giant Mysterio is still looming over him this whole time. We cut back to the supporting cast once again, and we see that Captain Stacy has gotten a phone call from Robertson saying, hey, let's get together and talk about Spider-Man and news and Mysterio and all this sort of stuff. And then we meet Robbie Robertson's son for the first time, I believe. We haven't seen him before, right?
No, this is new. So and they announced that he's about to start at ESU. So this is the introduction of a new cast member, the introduction of a new potential friend for Peter Parker, Randy Robertson.
Yes. And won't he go on to become a villain?
No, he won't. You're thinking of Hobie something who becomes the Prowler. But
yes.
Randy Robertson never becomes a villain. He becomes a supporting member, and unfortunately never really pops as a supporting member. He's sort of, I hate to say it, but he's sort of similar to Franklin and Peanuts, where it's like they sort of felt like they couldn't give him that much personality because he was the whack one and you don't want to have him be extreme in any way. And so he never has, Randy has some personality. He gets involved in the campus politics to a certain extent. He has some opinions on things at times. I like him as a character, but I always felt like he could have popped more as a character if maybe they hadn't been a little reticent to give him that strong of a personality.
Just a little skittish about, yeah, right. Okay, so back to Spider-Man and Mysterio. The giant Mysterio throws a giant knife at Spider-Man, and he's able to jump out of the way. But then Spider-Man uses the springiness of the metal knife to fling himself towards Mysterio, who then disappears. And at this point, Spider-Man is thinking, I knew it. That proves I was right. And what he is right about is that this giant Mysterio is all an illusion of some sort, because otherwise, if he were real, then he would have physically bumped into him, or at least that's his thinking. So then Spider-Man sees one of the, I just think of The Great Gasp was the name of this ride in Six Flags Over Atlanta when we were growing up. But what would you call these things?
A parachute drop.
Well, it might be a parachute drop, but it might be one of those swinging chairs things too. But one way or the other, it's a big tower that has a lot of cables hanging from it. And so there's a light on top of it. And Spider-Man's like, that might mean something. So he goes over, rips the roof off, finds a regular sized Mysterio inside. And Spider-Man,
a same size as him, Mysterio inside. He thought that the other Mysterio, he thought he was small, and he thought the other Mysterio was regular size and was menacing him. But now he's come to suspect that Spider-Man, is not small, and that therefore Mysterio is going to be the same size as him. And so he rips the roof off this thing and reveals Mysterio is there. I think this is a really clever trap for a villain to put a hero in, because Mysterio was like, look, here is my miniature model of an amusement park on my table, and now I'm going to hit you with gas. And then he wakes up in that amusement park and he's like, oh, I must be tiny, I must be on that table. And it's like, no, he had taken a real life-size amusement park and put Spider-Man in it and convinced him, because he had seen the tiny table on the tiny amusement park on the table, I must be in there, without realizing he's now in a full-size amusement park and the giant Mysterio is an illusion. I think this is just a fiendish trap for a villain to put a hero in. Very clever. And I really like the whole idea of this issue.
Yes, and I think they specify that the giant Mysterio, or the regular size, the giant size compared to Spider-Man, we'll just say that Mysterio was all part of post-hypnotic suggestion somehow. Yes. So it doesn't quite fit into the whole special effects milieu that we usually work with Mysterio, but it's close enough. It's adjacent. So sure. Spider-Man is able to knock him out. And it looks like he sets the Mysterio equipment on fire and then swings off. And as he's swinging back towards home, he sees a student protest at a university, presumably at ESU. And it just says, next, Spidey gets involved.
Well, as he's swinging over, he says, looks like some sort of demonstration down below, but at least it doesn't concern old Spider-Man. So they specifically say, like, I don't care about demonstrations. At least this is different from Ditko's last issue, where he was like actively denouncing demonstrating students. Now he's just unconcerned. As is frequently the case in these comics, it's unclear exactly what they're protesting. The signs just say, join the students, join the something something, which is a squiggle. It says protest something something, students for a something something. It's impossible to tell exactly whether this is the sort of protest that we should support or not support, but it's all going to be a little more clear next issue, which is good. That's interesting. It's nice to see that they're finally going to explicitly condemn that completely out of character Ditko scene in which Spider-Man was condemning protesters, or not condemn it, contradict it. They're going to explicitly contradict it.
Yes, yes. So let's see. I'm done. I guess you've kind of given your final thoughts on this issue as well, if I'm not mistaken. But you can go ahead and wrap up and take over for the next issue.
I say at the end of my notes, great issue, very clever trap, good supporting cast development. I say no sign of Green Goblin, who we saw just a little bit of in the previous issue. So presumably the events of this issue are still happening in the middle of that Spectacular Spider-Man, but then the Spectacular Spider-Man wraps up in between this issue and the next. And we're never going to see Green Goblin again, or we're not going to see Green Goblin again as part of that storyline. We're only going to see him in the next Green Goblin storyline, which is going to be 30 issues later. So that's all very confusing. But presumably the intercutting of these two books is over now. Yeah, I guess that's it. Okay, let's go ahead and jump to a shockingly good book.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you for the most part. There are some real complaints that I do have, but for the most part, I found this issue to be, yes, shockingly entertaining.
Yes, let's go ahead and read Daredevil number 47, Brother Take My Hand.
I will say on the cover, I do have a problem with this cover. Look at the banister for this staircase.
Yes, I like it. I like that banister. It's expressionistic, as is frequently the case in Daredevil. And, you know, Colin can be a sort of expressionistic, like German expressionism type of artist. And the whole thing is, this is a very dynamic cover where you've got three goons, three gun-wielding goons are rushing up a stairwell where Daredevil is at the top, swinging up and kicking one to the extent that he knocks all the others down. And then behind him, there is a black man with a seeing eye dog, who really well drawn by Colin, who is clearly blind and sort of looking at nothing in particular and is sort of looking out vaguely ahead of him, trying to, you know, tell where things are happening by sound very clearly instead of with his eyesight. I think it's, you know, really nicely drawn. And I don't like how they've still got Daredevil broken into two lines, but oh well. So then we go ahead and jump into the issue, and we begin several months ago. It says the scene is Vietnam a few short months ago. So apparently they never told us a few months ago that Daredevil went to Vietnam as part of a USO tour. And so we begin with Daredevil in Vietnam, USO tour, conceived, created, and composed by Stan the Man Lee and Gene the Dean Colan, embellishment George Klein, lettering Artie Simek. So George Klein continues to be the hero of this book as far as I'm concerned. He's been doing a great job inking Buscema over on Avengers, and now they've brought him over to ink Colan over here on Daredevil, and I think he's doing an amazing job. I think the art in this issue is just gorgeous. And we begin with a bunch of U.S. soldiers applauding the USO. And then one of them, we get this issue is very much like an episode of The Fugitive or something like that, an episode of an exceptionally well-written late 60s TV show where we have this character who's introduced just for this one issue, Willie Lincoln, who is a soldier who in Vietnam who took a grenade to the face and it mostly blinded him, but he's not completely blind. So they bring him out to watch the USO show. But then while he's watching Daredevil perform for the USO, he goes completely blind. And his eyesight finally clocks out altogether and he freaks out and they have to sort of stop the show to sort of subdue him. And then he wakes up in the infirmary and Daredevil comes to visit him and is going like, well, you know, Daredevil at this point could have just said, by the way, I'm blind too, promise you won't tell anybody, but because that would have been presumably comforting. But instead, Daredevil decides to keep that information secret. But he does say, when you're back in the States, you should look up Matt Murdock. Interestingly, he also doesn't say that Matt Murdock is blind, but he says you should look up Matt Murdock when you're in the States. And then he goes home. Then we cut to what has happened in the intervening months with Willie Lincoln. Willie Lincoln tells Daredevil, like, he says, well, can you go back to your job? It's like, well, I was a cop. It's like, well, you know, maybe you could go back to doing that in some way. Perhaps you can still return to the force in some capacity. And he's like, no, even before this, I couldn't have gone back to it. And it's like, why? I'm not going to tell you. And then, so then we cut to, he is back. He does try to go back and get his job back on the force and is told that he
being
can't.
Willie Lincoln.
Willie Lincoln does try to get his job back on the police force and is told that he can't because I guess they're still not telling us why he can't. And then Willie Lincoln then goes to the welfare department.
Well, they say, how can I clear myself without help? And the policeman that he's speaking with says the evidence against you is mostly circumstantial. The first thing you're going to need is a good lawyer. So they make it clear that he is, there's something that has circumstantial evidence against him that is keeping him from getting back on the force. We don't know specifically what, but we do know that.
Yes. So then he goes to the welfare department, I guess, because he needs money for a lawyer. And who she ran into but Karen Page, who we have not seen in several months. She is working for the welfare department, which makes sense. That's a good place she can use her skills that she has amassed over the years. And she once again says, you should go talk to Matt Murdock. And again, does not tell him because Matt is also blind like you. But he's like, hey, you're the second person who's recommended I go to Matt Murdock. I guess I should. So then he goes to Matt Murdock. Matt Murdock, he tells him the whole story about how somebody claimed that he was taking a payoff and had some sort of circumstantial evidence saying that he was taking bribes, and that Matt Murdock says, okay, let's go ahead and fight this. We cut to the crook who's behind all this, Biggie, not to be confused with the late rapper Biggie. And so then Biggie is like, well, let's go ahead and send some goons. If you didn't like the cover of Staircase, you must really not like the staircase on page 11.
Yeah, not a huge fan, but you're talking on panel 2.
Yeah.
That doesn't bother me nearly as much as the one on the cover did, but
okay.
But yeah, it's the banisters in this issue are all a little. I think expressionistic is not the wrong word that you were using. Yes.
So then Daredevil beats up the goon, sends him on his way. Then they go ahead. Daredevil in court goes ahead and clears William Lincoln's name. Nice courtroom sequences. I like how well they're done.
One thing about the courtroom sequence, at one point, Matt Murdock says, okay, Biggie, I'm through with you. Call Whitey Barton to the stand. And my initial thought was that this was supposed to be a reference to Whitey Bulger. But I went and looked up on Wikipedia, and no, Whitey Bulger was nothing more than a 2-bit hood at this point. He was not anyone that would have any name recognition at this point.
Oh, that's funny. Okay.
Yeah.
So then he gets the same cleared, but then for revenge, goons once again come to kill him. And then this is the one thing I kind of don't like about this issue, in that it's sort of typical Daredevil inanity, where Matt says, okay, I'm going to turn off the lights, beat them up in the dark. Colin and Klein do a great job showing a fight in the dark. It really feels like this fight is being fought in an extremely dark room. But it's sort of bizarre that Matt says, I have to beat them up and pretend I'm William Lincoln as I'm beating them up. God hope he's not doing some sort of dialect or accent while he's doing so. And, and he says, I've got to convince them that they should never come after William Lincoln again, because I have to convince them that I am, that William Lincoln can beat them up in the dark. And he does. But then he changes to Daredevil, which sort of confuses matters a little bit, and continues to beat them up, and then sends them on their way. This will supposedly convince them to never try to get revenge against William Lincoln again. And then at some point here, finally, Matt Murdock has revealed to William Lincoln, by the way, I'm blind just like you are. And they've sort of bonded over that. And so then now William Lincoln has had his name cleared, and no one's going to try to kill him again. And Daredevil, again, not admitting that I'm Matt Murdock or that I'm blind, is able to bond with William Lincoln. And William Lincoln and his seeing eye dog are ready to face the future. I think that this is a great issue. I think it is gorgeous art by Colin and Klein, but I think it's a really good story by Lee, and presumably co-potting with Colin. It does feel like a really good episode of The Naked City or The Fugitive or The Mod Squad, a particularly good episode of The Mod Squad, in terms of, you've got this sort of heart-tugging story of this, person dealing with modern issues. And I really like William Lincoln as a character. I just really like this issue. What do you think of it, Steve?
Yeah, I got to the end of it and I was thinking, wow, that was actually a really good issue of Daredevil.
Yes.
It is remarkable. There are some things that I could take issue with, but overall, I felt that the story was much better than average on this book.
Yes. And it works for once that he's a lawyer. This is not one of these cases where it's like, oh, as a lawyer, I'm going to work to get criminals, make them go free. And then as a superhero, I'll go and I'll beat them up afterwards. And it's like, okay, that is unethical on many levels. And that is not a good setup for this book. But here it's like, okay, as a lawyer, I'm going to protect people in one way. And then as a superhero, I'll protect those same people in a different way. And it's like, okay, that works. It works to have him be a superhero lawyer in this one issue. And can sort of make up for all the issues where it didn't work. And indeed, when this book finally gets good, when Frank Miller is writing and drawing it, that's sort of how it is going to be used. And not like, and on the TV show, which is much better in the movie. In the movie, they do a terrible job of it. On the TV show, they did a better job of it. Yeah, just checking out my notes, I say, Willie Lincoln didn't know Matt Murdock was blind throughout the trial. That seems unlikely.
Yeah. It's like, it's like you didn't hear the cane, at any
Yes.
point. You didn't hear anybody being like, hey, the blind guy went and got a blind lawyer. That never came up in conversation.
Nope, seemingly didn't. Yeah, it seemed weird that they withheld that information until then, especially because like one of the things lawyers have to do is sort of, like bond with their client, and you would think that would have been a quick way to bond. So I say standard weird plot stuff with the fighting in the dark, but Willie Lincoln is a great character, so it's a great issue, one of the best Daredevil issues. Lawyer thing actually works. And yeah, the final line of the book is Willie Lincoln saying maybe that's what brotherhood is all about. And it's just a nice 1960s story here as we get to the end of 1968.
Yeah. So let's move on to the Mighty Thor number 159. On the cover, the title is The Answer at Last. We see a Thor in the bottom left-hand corner fighting what I believe is a storm giant coming at him.
Mm-hmm.
Taking up most of the page. So, who is the real Don Blake? The Answer at Last, a Stan Lee, Jack Kirby production. Inking Vince Colletta, lettering Sam Rosen. So, Dr. Blake is finishing up surgery. Another surgeon who is working with him is like, hey, so have you been away on vacation? I haven't seen you in a while. He's like, yeah, sure. Let's just call it a vacation if fighting Mangog is considered a vacation. So he is still trying to figure out who he is. Who is Don Blake? Is Don Blake a real person? Where was Thor before Don Blake found the hammer? What is going on? So he essentially goes into kind of like a trance here.
So this book has been going since issue 83. It is now up to issue 159, almost 75 issues later. And it's still not clear to me if he can go to Asgard and back or not. I feel like usually when he goes to Asgard, he is somehow teleported there by Odin. And it's never been exactly clear to me if he can just swing his hammer and travel to Asgard. It's been clear he can go to the past and future. It's been clear that he can go to other planets, but it's never been clear he can go to Asgard. And indeed, in this issue, he seems to go there in a way he's never been there before. He lays black as Don Blake and sort of astral projects as if he were Doctor Strange to Asgard. But on Asgard, people are like seeing him and interacting with him. It's not like he is some sort of spectral ghost. But then when he's done making this sort of visit Asgard, he doesn't transport himself bodily. He wakes up and he's still lying there in his bed as Don Blake. It's very strange.
Yes. So Thor is in Asgard, as you said. Don Blake is still laying there in the dark back on Earth. And he comes and has an audience with Odin. And Odin says, yes, I know why you've come, because I am omniscient and I shall answer your questions. So, and of course, Odin is in a spectacular set of armor and helmet and scepter here. As always.
And as always, he looks very nice, except for he has too many scratchy lines on his elbows. The one always Colletta giveaway is too many scratchy lines on the elbows. God knows why that's the one place he always lets his Colletta flag fly, but there it is.
There it is. So Don Blake then snaps back awake in Earth, and Odin is still speaking to him now and giving him visions of years ago and what happened with Thor. So apparently when Thor was young, he was chasing some deadly bird beast into Niflheim. And apparently there was a treaty between Asgard and Niflheim that no one from Asgard would ever trespass in Niflheim. So the young Thor comes and destroys this so-called bird beast, which was going to be a problem for Niflheim. And it's just like, and this is where the storm giants live. And they're like, who dares to tread upon forbidden land? And Thor is like, hey, I just killed a bird beast for you. You're welcome, basically.
Yeah.
And the storm giants are not happy about this. And so they go and attack him. They have a fight. And then Balder then comes by to get him and is like, yeah, your dad's not happy. It's
Yeah.
like, well, why not? We then see that Thor, in another incident, Thor was having an arm wrestling match with another Asgardian, and Volstagg ends up bowing to somebody, and his big old butt knocks over the arm wrestling table. And the person that Thor was arm wrestling with, Gondalf, not to be confused with Gandalf, this is Gondalf, then is accusing Thor of cheating by way of Volstagg. Mm-hmm. They get into a big old barroom brawl. At that point, Odin summons Thor to him, and he says, "Thou art lacking in humility," and tells him that he's going to teach him humility. And he does that by sending him to Earth. And he shows up in Earth as a young man. And apparently he just never thought about why I don't have any memories of childhood and parents and anything like that. He just shows up in a suit with his cane, and he's there on a college campus, and he's enrolling in college.
For his first day of medical school, presumably, and or middle school or pre-med, I guess. He's on this. He's at, I guess he's in medical school because he's at the State College of Medicine. So presumably he's finished college at this point. If he had existed, he finished his non-existent college as a non-existent person, and then came into existence on the first day of medical school. So it's sort of like Stanley is like, don't worry, he's a doctor. He went to medical school, but he just didn't exist before that.
Right.
Yes. So anyway,
in the end, Odin says, so, I sent you to Earth as a man with a disability and a man who is going to be a healer so that you could learn service and humility, and that, folks can overcome barriers that you would never have had to have overcome yourself as the son of Odin. And you have learned what you needed to learn. And for the most part, I like this issue. I do have a little bit of a problem with the timeline of it. They make it clear that some of these incidents they were showing with Thor was when he was young. And yet they're also then saying that Thor has only been Don Blake. Thor has only been gone as long as he has been Don Blake. So how young could Thor have been? But for the most part, it's good to answer the questions that we get answered in here. And lots of great art. Yeah, I like it. How about you?
I like this issue a lot. This issue is very much the basis of the first MCU Thor movie. You've got Thor going rashly into a storm giant world and hanging out with his boisterous friends, the Warriors 3, and then Odin getting fed up with this, especially that he broke this treaty, and saying, I need to teach you humility. I'm going to remove your powers and send you crashing down to Earth, and take your hammer away and try to teach you humility there on Earth. This is all very much the plot of that MCU movie that I liked so much. And here's where we find out the real origin of Thor to a real extent that we've never had before. And it works. I think this is a really good origin going forward. It makes a lot more sense than whatever we had before. I absolutely adore the art on page 14, where we have this bird's eye view of the arm wrestling contest.
Yes.
And it, we have all of these people gathered around. This is an extremely busy page, but we've got all of these people gathered around cheering on the arm wrestling contest as we're looking directly down, or almost directly down. We're looking at sort of a 5-degree angle at these, or I guess, what would you say? You would say an 85-degree angle at,
I don't know. It's a very high angle. Let's just put it that way. A very
high angle on down onto Thor and Gondalf. And I love, of course, that Volstagg accidentally wrecks the table by bowing with his big badonkadonk. And I think that this is, and then of course, when this then causes a fight, Volstagg has somehow found a trap door in the floor, and he's waving his big mug around of sack, presumably of wine or whatever, is climbing through the trapdoor saying, they go, Thor hath but few, but we be more than he now, for we be Hogan the Grim and Fantril the Dashing. And then as he's going through the trapdoor, he says, and voluminous Falstag, whose very name makes armies tremble, whilst thou do battle yonder, Falstag shall seek out cowards who may be hiding below. And he climbs down through the trapdoor. I absolutely love Falstag, who is very much Stanley's version of Falstaff from the Henry IV plays and from Merry Wives of Windsor. And he is just one of my all-time favorite Marvel characters, as I've said before on this podcast, and I always love it when he shows up. So yes, and of course Odin looks splendiferous in his helmet and scepter and armor, and the whole thing is just gorgeous. Let me check my notes real quick. Yeah, of course, there's always a question of what kind of doctor is Don Blake? Does he have a family practice, or is he an actual surgeon? Or is he someone who invents robots? It's never exactly clear.
He is any one of those three things whenever the plot demands it.
Yes. I say at the end. So that's it. Good to learn this stuff. Great issue. Fun Storm Giant fight. Fun arm wrestling. Okay.
Let's move on and do X-Men number 51. And I believe this one is yours.
X-Men number 51. Let's see. Let me go ahead and pull this open. So who knows who could possibly be the artist on this issue of X-Men? We know who did the cover because it says in big letters on the cover, Steranko. And we have a pretty good Steranko cover, but not as good as most Steranko covers. And where the X-Men are sort of we've got a sort of symbolic cover of this new character, Eric the Red, who is not actually introduced until the final page of the issue, shooting beams down at the X-Men, who are all sort of floating in front of him in sort of agony in various ways. And we then cut to the inside of the issue, and we see another villain triumphantly raising his arms over his head. And it says in a very Will Eisner, the Spirit-esque page with the giant title worked into the machinery, "The Devil Had a Daughter." And nice extreme lighting on Magneto as his giant shadow is being cast on the Devil Had a Daughter, and he stands in front of Polaris and the X-Men. It says, Editor Stanley, writer Arnold Drake, art, do we have to tell you? ? Inks, John Tartaglione, lettering, S. Rosen. So you have said, Steve, in the past that this is because Steranko asked for his name to be taken off the book.
I have heard that. Mm-hmm. That's about all the confirmation I can give you. That is the story I've heard, is that Steranko wanted his name taken off this issue. And that's why they don't mention his name here.
Yeah. So, and indeed, I would not, be averse to having my name taken off this issue either. Tartaglione's inks are just awful in this issue. They're the worst inks he's ever done. Seemingly, this issue came in late, and Tartaglione just had a couple hours to ink it. I have no idea, but the inking is truly awful. This first page with the Devil Had a Daughter is the nicest looking page in the issue. And then we begin the issue where Magneto has arrived, and he is ranting about Polaris being his daughter. And that's right. I had intended for you to do this issue because I can't follow this issue. We then get to
yeah, I can. You want to swap this out, and I can do this, and you can do Incredible Hulk.
I'll just have you hold my hand as we go through this. So then They start to beat up Magneto, but then they stop. Everybody is stopping Bobby from beating up Magneto. And they're like, no. Don't you realize why we can't do that? And I cannot follow in this avalanche of words. Somebody once famously told our mother, you have high verbal skills and low communication skills.
That was said just about that side of the family in general, wasn't it?
Well, no, I think it was, they were giving her some sort of personality evaluation in order to figure out what sort of job she should get. And the person doing the evaluation said, well, this is odd. According to our thing, it says you have high verbal skills and low communication skills. And my mom said, that's not unusual. I'm Irish, and my whole family has high verbal skills and low communication skills. And indeed, later I read the novel Ulysses, and I'm like, this is a book that has high verbal skills and low communication skills. And so then this book really doesn't have high verbal skills either. It has verbosity, you would certainly say. They go on and on and on talking to each other, but I cannot figure out what exactly the nature of their fight was. But seemingly Bobby wins over Scott eventually. Iceman wins over Cyclops, because then Cyclops is like, you're right, we should go ahead and attack Magneto. Magneto calls up all his goons, including Mesmero, although Mesmero never uses his mesmerizing powers. And they get into a big fight for several pages, which is okay. Really, really, really shockingly terrible inks on all of the art, where it really looks like Steranko can't draw. That's always the problem with bad inks, is bad inks make it look like you've got a bad penciler. And there's sort of a nice sequence where they put a big bucket on Cyclops' head and he busts his way out of it. Anyway, they fight for most of the book. And then finally, Magneto decides to leave. I'm not sure why. He was basically winning, but he decides to take off. But then it's bizarre because he doesn't take off. He stays. He seems to flee on page 11, but then eventually the X-Men flee instead and leave him there. And so that he's still got this headquarters and he keeps Polaris. They don't rescue Polaris. And then it cuts to them back in their temporary headquarters in San Francisco, where once again, Bobby and Scott, Iceman and Cyclops, are having a big fight about something. And they're going on and on, yelling at each other. And it wasn't clear to me exactly what. And then Bobby seemingly leaves. And then they're like, oh, it's better this way. He'll cool off. And by then we'll be done with Magneto. It's like, well, what are you going to do? You're just going to fly back to Magneto in the same rocket you flew away from him, assuming he's still in the same place. And then you cut to Magneto's headquarters and it's attacked by a big guy in red named Eric the Red. And just when you're going like, what on earth is even going on in this issue? The issue ends, or the main story ends, and we get to the backup story. So Steve, please enlighten me as to what all I fail to understand about this issue.
Well, you failed to point out that the Beast it gets them out of Magneto's headquarters by literally headbutting a hole in the wall. So
yes, true.
I find that to be a real head scratcher moment, or head smasher moment, I guess. So, and then, yeah, they get in some kind of a rocket ship. I went and reread this morning, and I'm not sure I could have done a much better job. I probably would have just gotten a little more lost in the weeds in terms of what was going on in any one given page. You, I think, did a remarkably good job of eliding over much of what's going on in here.
Yes.
Yeah, it's unclear.
Yes. Like what? Okay. All right, let's not even try to get into it as to what exactly Bobby and Scott were disagreeing about, either the first time or the second time. I guess we can just go ahead and jump to the back of the book. I don't know. Any more thoughts about the art?
Not really. I think that, disappointing art. We did see at least some mutant powers from the mutants that are in Magneto's mutant army here, which I think was a little bit unclear in a previous issue. What, the Meta Men, I guess? So yes. We do actually see some superpower by at least one of them here. So there's that. I will grant them that. But yeah, in the end, Bobby has left to go be angry, and then Eric the Red attacks, and we don't know what the heck's going on.
No, we have no idea. And why did they not rescue Lorna Dane? That was the whole reason they were there. Why did they run away without her?
Well, they did have a very specific conversation about that she had thrown in with Magneto, that she made her choice.
Okay.
And they were saying that, we really can't blame her too much. She was put in this impossible situation where this is her father, or at least she thinks it's her father. And he's basically giving her this me and power, or them and destruction choice. And she chose to stay with him.
Okay. I guess that makes sense. So that's okay. So yeah, but just looking at my notes, the fifth panel on page 7, where you've got 4 of the X-Men about to attack, it's just really looks like it was drawn by a 5-year-old. And we know that's not Steranko's fault. We know that's Tartaglioni's fault, but it really looks like something that you would see scratched into the back page of your algebra reader from some X-Men fan. And I say at the end, and that's it for Jim Steranko on the book. Nowhere near as great as Jim Steranko on Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. But maybe that's because of both issues ranked by Tartaglione. Who knows?
One other thing that I have noticed about this issue, and this will continue into the backup feature, is Arnold Drake tends to break up his voice balloons in the strangest places.
Yes.
And I was wondering if it was him or the letterer, but no, we've got different letterers in the first part of the book and the second part of the book, and both of them are doing this.
Yeah. Yeah, don't whistle me the stars and stripes, Trevor. He started it, ... with that jazz about me being a traitor. Yes, strange breakups.
Yeah, and here on page 2 of the backup story, the conquistador, who we're about to find out is going to be the villain here, says, I knew that somehow, somewhere, I would discover this final human tool that, next balloon, would complete my incredible plan. Strangely broken up panel balloons.
Yes. So that brings us to the origins of the Uncanny X-Men, the lure of the Beast Snappers. This whole Origins of the X-Men storyline has been going on for a long time, this backup feature. It's amazing they've been able to wring so many stories out of it. But that's fine, because they've been pretty good until this point. However, we have a change of inker, and inkers make all the difference in Marvel Comics. It says, wrought through the animal artfulness of Stanley editor, Arnold Drake writer, Werner Roth artist, John Tartaglia, he's called inker, and Herb Cooper letterer. And so John Verpoorten, who is normally works a desk at Marvel Comics, has been helping out for some reason, just inking the backup feature in the X-Men, and he's been doing a really great job. And now we have John Tartaglione, one of Marvel's worst inkers, who has also been ruining the first half of the book, taking over here in the back, and indeed, it's nowhere near as good. We cut to Hank is still in the middle of his college football career, or I guess high school football career, but you're right. They're a little unclear about whether it's high school or college.
I mean, yeah, it would have to be high school because of the age of him at the beginning of the X-Men, but it really is just, this is clearly college football, though.
Yeah, I guess high school football career. Once again, not hiding the fact that he's a mutant, just romping around and nobody else seems to mind. It's an interesting sort of alternative to some of the other stories we've gotten. But then a villain called El Conquistador is determined to kidnap him, and does so, and then kidnaps him and says, oh, and you have to help me. And just to help this come along, I've also kidnapped your parents, and has his parents tied up and blindfolded. And meanwhile, we cut to the X-Men, who now, well, it's interesting. So we've only seen Scott and Bobby join the X-Men, but now here's Angel. And they go, how did Angel get here before his origin was unfolded? Patience, dear fanatics, as all shall be made known. And so everybody but Marvel Girl is accounted for at this point. Of course, we saw her join the group in the very first issue. And so we know that she joins last. And then it says next issue, Hank's Choice. This is fine. It's all perfectly fine. But the art is nowhere near as good, which is a bummer. Of course, Werner Roth, not a great penciler, and now he's paired with a bad inker. But it's fine. What do you think of this story?
Yeah, I, still have a problem with the whole high school versus college question in here. But overall, yeah, I like the idea of him not really hiding that he's a mutant, but then later how they have him always binding his feet and stuff so that he doesn't jump out. I guess that's more just for when they were students and didn't want to give away, hey, this one student in this school is a mutant. Yes. I don't know. It leaves me with some questions, but overall, this is I will back up your opinion of fine.
Yep, it's fine. There's a letter at the end from Carl Bruzasic, and I'm like, is that Kurt Busiek before he anglicized his name? But no, it's not.
Right. Okay, so let's move on to Incredible Hulk number 110. Umbu the Unliving. So it's like we're back in 1950s Marvel again here, 1950s Atlas with monster comics.
But isn't the whole idea that he is living? He's like this great living statue. And if he was unliving, if you're a giant unliving statue, then you're no threat to anybody. You're just going to sit there.
Right. Okay. Yeah, we're arguing minutia here. But it's a nice Trimpy and Severin cover. With we can see that we've still got Kazar involved. He is swinging on a jungle vine, attacking Umbu, while Umbu is shooting an energy bolt of some sort at the Hulk, who is being zonked.
Signed prominently by both Trimpy and Severin, which is unusual for the inker to sign the cover, but Severin knows that he's responsible for a lot of the value here, so he's more than happy to put his name on it.
Yes. Script and editing, Stan the Man Lee. Penciling, Happy Herb Trimpy. Inks, John Severin. Lettering, Sam Rosen. So we start off with some action. In the previous issue, Hulk had knocked Kazar unconscious, and now Zabu is pouncing on the Hulk in this splash page.
And it is pretty threatening looking. Like, you would not want to have this saber-toothed tiger pouncing on you, even if you were as strong as the Hulk. And I really think that, this art just continues to just be stellar, with Herb Trippy's amazing Kirby-esque dynamism, and then John Severin's solid artistic inking, giving the solidity to it that it wouldn't normally have. I think it's just absolutely gorgeous.
Yes. So Hulk and Zabu go at it. Kazar is wanting to end the fight because he knows he needs Bruce Banner back in order to stop the machine that they have found. And the Hulk jumps right through the mountain, jumps through a hole in the cave and falls into some water. Kazar and Zabu follow him. We then see that the Swamp Men are needing a human sacrifice for the wrathful Umbu, who will otherwise be displeased. And then they say, silence, Umbu the Unliving lives again. So I guess maybe Umbu the Unliving is what they've been calling him as a statue. But now he is living. It could be maybe they'd seen him move in the past and now he's not. I don't know.
Yes.
And it becomes clear that this Umbu the Unliving was left here by the same aliens that left the machine that's now throwing the Earth off its axis, and it's here to protect that machine.
Okay, that was not exactly clear to me, but that makes the whole issue make much more sense. Okay, good to know.
So, do we know anything about this alien race? Are we going to find out more about this alien race, or do you know?
I don't recognize them.
Yeah, they look like they could be blue-skinned, but it could just be that that's what the faceplate makes it look like. And they've got sort of elongated heads with kind of a central ridge on it that looks sort of like a mohawk, but otherwise human-looking. Mm-hmm. So they're having this flashback to when the aliens left Umbu, and it says, none may tamper with the glowing machine. We now depart, but Umbu shall remain. If the machine be threatened, then shall Umbu live. And so it has come to pass. So that's what's going on with Umbu. So the Hulk continues his fight with Kazar and Zabu. At one point, the Hulk just throws Kazar and Zabu what looks like a mile.
Yes.
It's like, yeah, they would totally be dead at this point. But, we get to see Kazar break his fall a little bit in some treetops. So, sure, that works in comic book logic. We'll go with that. But he is knocked unconscious, at which point the Swamp Men find him, and they're like, aha, we have found our human sacrifice. Now, why Umbu feels the need to have this human sacrifice, I don't know, because Umbu is actually actively saying, return to your village, prepare the victim upon the altar of death. Where Umbu goes, he goes alone. So I don't know whether this is just I'm trying to get you out of the way so you're not going to bother me while I'm doing what I'm doing or what. But it seems that Umbu actually does want the human sacrifice, which doesn't really seem to make much sense. But the Hulk ends up coming into conflict with Umbu, throws a boulder at Umbu's chest, and thinks that that's going to destroy him. But apparently there's some kind of repair circuitry that's able to heal the robot. So the Hulk is finding he doesn't really have any power to hurt Umbu. But then at one point, he then destroys a cliff face and sends all of the rocks from the cliff face down on Umbu, thinking that's going to do it. But nope, Umbu climbs up out of that anyway, and then uses some sort of gas attack on the Hulk. Mm-hmm. And as we found in the past, gas is one thing that he is definitely vulnerable to. And the side effect of this gas is that it turns him back into Bruce Banner. Apparently, the way that Umbu is programmed, he does not recognize anymore that Bruce Banner is the one that he was interacting with and needs to, worry about. So he now is just like, the green one's gone. I'm going to move on.
As always, it's time to point out they're both wearing purple pants, but no one can ever realize how rare purple pants are.
Now, in this case, this is a robot left by aliens. So,
yes.
And it's giant. So noticing that the tiny little character down below you is wearing purple pants and knowing that that is a significant thing, I'll give Umbu a pass on this one. Okay. So Kazar is in a spot.
Yes.
This human sacrifice, he is tied. Each of his 4 limbs is bound and tied to poles at 4 corners of a pit. And inside this pit, there are Dimetrodons, it looks like, roaming around, and I'm going to say it, Matt, a brazier.
You mean brazier?
No, I do not. That would not be a frightening thing to be suspended above. Anyway, a big fire bowl, let's just say that, is burning beneath Khazar here. And it looks like he's probably already being cooked. But
yeah, I would not want to be there.
No, he's able to free one of his hands just through his strength and knock the pole down. He's then able to untie the rope with his teeth, use that free hand to then untie one of his feet. And then he is able to untie the other foot, at which point he's got to do it just right so that he doesn't fall into the fire, but instead knocks over the fire and sets the entire pit on fire, roasting those unfortunate Dimetrodons there. Yeah. They are going to be dinner now. And he's able to get free. He's able to free Zabu. They then lay into the swamp men. And Bruce Banner, meanwhile, remembers why he was there and goes back and finds the machinery that he's supposed to be messing with and is trying to fix the machine, but then hears Umbu coming back at him, and he's like, oh no, I don't have much time. I need to make sure that I've got everything right. I can't fail. And then so he finally removes the master control unit from this thing, and in addition to fixing the Earth's axis, also ends up wrecking Umbu, who falls down lifeless once again.
Mm-hmm.
So in the end, Khazar is able to find Bruce Banner, who is now laying lifeless, it seems, in front of the machine. And Khazar says the machine is now harmless, but his heart has stopped. He has no pulse. Bruce Banner is dead. And some of the narration earlier was saying there's some kind of radiation coming from the Doomsday Machine, and that this is what has supposedly killed him. And then, of course, as always, Hulk Inuit.
Yes. What a Shaggy Dog story. You know, the whole idea behind Hulk Inuit is just that this book almost always ends on a cliffhanger, and there are always just these crazy stories that just go all around the world. Or in this case, maybe to another world. It's very unclear what the Savage Land is. They seem to be affected when their sun is affected. Our sun is affected, but they clearly seem to be an underground world that would have a different sun, or another dimensional world or something, but they shouldn't have the same sun as us. It is all extremely strange and weird, but it's fine. Yeah, I point out that when Khazar is suspended over the flame, it looks really scary. And the way he gets free is very clever, where it's like, okay, I'm spreading gold. Each of my 4 limbs is tied up. I can get 1 limb free and then still be dangling over the fire because I've got 3 limbs supporting me. And then I have to make sure that when I clear the second limb, it has to be the one at an opposite angle to the first limb that I freed. So that then I'll still be dangling on the other 2. And then it's only when I clear the third one that I'm really in trouble and I have to swing away from this fire. It's very clever, very good storytelling by Trempy.
Yes.
Beautifully inked by Severin. I say at the end, plotting on this story continues to be haphazard and bizarre, but it's filled with great visual elements, and Trumpy and Severin are doing great work.
Yes. I agree. The art in this is fantastic. A lot of the story is a bit ridiculous, but I will take it for what I'm getting.
Yes.
All right. So guess what, Matt?
What's that?
We have finished 1968.
No, we haven't. We've still got 2 more episodes of 1968 to do.
You're right. I jumped the gun. We finished the first third of the last month of 1968.
Yes, we have.
It's gone on so long.
Yeah, you've got derangement syndrome here. You're completely. No, you realize we never talk about Trump on this podcast for good reason. But there's a new player on the Atlanta Braves. We're both Atlanta Braves fans, and there's a new player, new backup catcher we have named Trump, Tromp, and he's been doing a good job. And every time I can't resist when I watch the games with my son, I'm like, Trump has some good ideas, and like I think I've misjudged Trump, and I think I was suffering from Trump derangement syndrome here for a while, but I really think Trump's doing a good job, and it just always gets a laugh from my son. So anyway, but yes. So Trump, whatever your first name is, backup Briggs catcher Trump. What's his name? Chadwick.
Yes,
Chadwick Trump.
Yes, he is a Reuben, actually, if I'm not mistaken. And so I'm guessing Chadwick must be Dutch, or Trump must be Dutch. I think it's all Dutch.
It's all Dutch to me.
Yes.
Okay, so yes, I think that these were 5, pretty good books. I would say the X-Men, shockingly, with one of Marvel's best pencilers, is been the weakest of these 5 books. Daredevil, even more shocking, was probably the best of these 5 books, although Spider-Man was also great and Thor was also great. So we've had some really great books here, all except for X-Men and all except for X-Men. So anyway, this was great. We will go ahead, and I hate to tell you, we are going to have 2 more episodes of 1968 and we will wrap up soon. We will see you next week. All right, thanks, everybody.
I guess I've read all the books of 1968 at this point, so
yes.
I was thrown for a minute. Yes, thank you very much, everybody. Please rate and review us. Please tell anyone else who might be at all interested in this podcast about it, so they can make up their own minds. And that's it. Thank you very much. Take care and stay safe out there.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed it, we now have a Patreon where you can show your appreciation. If you've got a few bucks, head over to patreon.marvelrereadclub.com to support us. Also, you can still rate and review us at your podcatcher of choice, and that would be greatly appreciated as well. You can find us online at marvelrereadclub.com, as well as Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads. See you next time.